There was a moment, buried deep in the slop of this corporate Frankenfilm, where I felt something like joy. It may have been indigestion, it may have been nostalgia, it may have been the goddamn devil whispering sweet nothings into my dopamine-starved mind, but for one brief, fleeting second, amid the retrofuturism, I was entertained. Fantastic Four First Steps is, by all appearances, a brisk movie. This is a word that gets thrown around by people trying to describe oatmeal or light cardio, but in Marvel terms, it's a goddamn miracle. A sub-2-hour orgy of vaguely coherent exposition, sexless banter, and character arcs so shallow they can drown in a tablespoon of orange tang. And yet it moves. But don't mistake momentum for progress. Like a spooked ostrich running circles with its head jammed up its own cosmic asshole, Marvel's latest reboot is sprinting nowhere fast. Director Matt Shankman seems to be chasing a dream, drag the MCU out of its sludgy mediocrity, give it the Mad Men gloss of an alternate Earth, and slap a Jetsons wig on the corpse of 6 years of superhero decay. The poor bastard. The true beauty of this mutant bastard child of the MCU is that it doesn't require a blood pact with Disney Plus to understand what the hell is happening. No mandatory side quests on 6 streaming shows. Just 4 freaks, a big-ass space problem, and the freedom to watch without a CIA bulletin board of red string connections. For once, you don't need to be a Marvel scholar or own Kevin Feige's dream journal. You just sit, watch, and absorb, like movies used to be, before Disney turned storytelling into a hostage situation. Shankman's subtitle First Steps implies growth, ambition, the promise of a future, but the truth is different from reality. These are not the brave first toddlings of a newborn franchise. They are the final stumblings of a drunk parent trying to hold it together in the cereal aisle while Galactus pisses on the roof. Let's start with Reed Richards, the most elastic man in the multiverse and the least flexible human being on screen. Pedro Pascal fatigue aside, because thank God for another Pedro Pascal movie. I know you've waited hours since the last one. He plays the role like he's trying to find Wi-Fi in a Chilean mountain cave. Reed is brilliant, haunted, emotionally constipated. The kind of guy who could build a portal to Narnia out of spare parts from a humidifier, but one who short-circuits at the idea of being a dad. And therein lies the film's one true moment of thematic clarity: parenthood. The Richards have been trying for years, only to reserve themselves that having a child may never happen at all. On a personal note, and God help me for interjecting truth into this sterilized Disney chamber, I know what it's like to sit in that impossible space, to try for years to create a life, only to be met with silence and time, and then to make peace with the idea that maybe it's not in the cards. Maybe God has other plans for you, and you're okay with that. And then the sky splits open. One day your wife walks in with that look. The look that rearranges the molecules in your brain, and she tells you that it's happening. You're having a baby. A living explosion of life and blood and grace. And you don't just sit there dissecting the odds or reflecting on how hard it was. No. You scream, you laugh, you knock every light bulb out of the ceiling. Shards in a blizzard of sparks fall like divine confetti. And as those embers fall, that's when the real terror sets in. Not fear of the moment, but of the entire future for this miracle. The vast weight of what this child will become overwhelms you. A being so close to God, they could touch him, but so far away that shaping them becomes your impossible sacred burden. Every future possibility slams into your skull like a freight train made of granite and sleepless nights. In Fantastic Four First Steps, we get none of that, not a whiff. Just a flat-footed line about how they've been trying for 2 years, now she's pregnant, and yes, it's scary. That's it. And Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards floats somewhere in the vacuum between archetypes. He's not clinical or detached enough to be the cold-blooded scientist, nor vulnerable and trembling enough to sell the emotional reality of impending fatherhood. He exists in a limbo galaxy of narrative compromise, too blank to be bold, too careful to be compelling. In trying to play both sides of the emotional spectrum, he lands squarely in no man's land, a black hole of effect where the center should be. No spine, no teeth, just a man stretching thin across the script with nothing to hold him up. And that's pretty much most of what you see him use as powers. Reed Richards, the most elastic brain and body in the Marvel Universe, spends this movie stretching exactly nothing but your patience. The man could lasso a satellite with his pinky toe, but instead, he mostly just stands around, furrows his brow, and offers college-level math courses to the audience that needs them explained by the 3 other students who are actually in the film. For a guy who can contort through keyholes and punch somebody from across state lines, he sure uses his powers like he's afraid of throwing out his back. Fantastic Four First Steps barely scratches the parental fear nerve. It gestures and pokes at it with a soggy script, and then scurries back into the safety of mid-air CGI battles and whatever the hell Julia Garner is doing as Silver Surfer. She floats nude, she whispers doom, she makes Times Square look like a Calvin Klein ad for mass extinction, but she's not the point. The point is this: Marvel flirted with something real here, something ugly and true, and then it blinked. Instead of living in that raw emotional territory, the film barrels forward like a monorail through a shopping mall. Johnny Storm, played by Joseph Quinn, is a quip machine with no oil in the tank. His fire is less for alarm and more like a relaxing fireplace. Although he provides some key information to the plot, his arc is nowhere. You can replace him with a vape pen and nobody would notice. Ebon Moss-Bachrach's Ben Grimm, meanwhile, looks fantastic, a slab of gravel with eyebrows, but instead of an emotional arc, Ben has a crush on a Hebrew school teacher, played by Natasha Lyonne, that fizzles out faster than Johnny's cartoonish fire effects. Vanessa Kirby's Sue Storm, the supposed emotional center of this mess, spends most of her time giving speeches to angry mobs who want to sacrifice her baby to Space Satan. And that brings us to the ultimate wet fart of this would-be epic, Galactus. Jesus, Galactus. He's not a character, he's a narrative colonoscopy. He appears like a celestial IRS auditor with a penchant for infant flesh, looming over the earth like a judgmental microwave. A really cool looking microwave though, that is the centerpiece to the kitchen. The film calls him a force of nature, but this force of nature seems to really enjoy torturing the Fantastic Four with all the nuance of a Saturday morning cartoon villain. He tells Reed and Sue that they can choose, the baby or the planet. When they refuse, he promises to devour Earth slowly, and their son Franklin will watch along. This is not nature, this is malice. This is a god with a grudge. And that's the rub, isn't it? The MCU once pretended to care about complexity. Now it can't even commit to its own half-assed metaphors. Ralph Ineson does his best, growling with the gravitas of a dying walrus, but it's wasted under 30 layers of half-baked, twice-shy ideas. By the time the Fantastic Four leave Earth, all that retro-futurist charm disintegrates, which is a shame, because for the first time since post-Endgame, has Marvel made a movie that demanded to be looked at. All the nuclear age-inspired design of the 50s are spot on. The film gives us a light blue sky instead of CGI gray, costume designs that made sense for the time period, people moving in the background like they are living instead of blocking. But what once felt like a throwback world of possibilities becomes another smudged arena we're used to seeing in a Marvel film. And the stakes? Don't make me laugh. Marvel has trained us to believe every movie must end with the entire universe hanging by a thread, and yet the only thread here is one unraveling from Reed's turtleneck. We get another big blue beam, with another hero's plea for humanity to come together, and another dumbass moment where a mom brings her baby out to a riot like it's a bake sale. The Richards make terrible decisions when it comes to their child Franklin, to the point where MCU Social Services needs to make their first steps and take Franklin away from them. The scene where Sue Storm introduces Franklin Richards to a frothing, terrified citizenry who literally just demanded his sacrifice is maybe the most psychotic thing ever filmed for a PG-13 audience. If 2020 taught us anything, it's that when a mob comes after you, they don't want a speech, they want blood. This woman would have been torn to pieces, and Franklin would have been thrown through the ozone layer for Galactus to catch before she could finish the word family. And spoiler alert, they also used Franklin as bait. As smart as Reed Richards is supposed to be, he seems like an idiot. Parents in the audience will think of a million different scenarios where they don't use their child as bait to a 40-story tall villain who consumes entire planets. But Marvel doesn't care. Marvel wants catharsis without consequence. They want babies to symbolize hope without the responsibility. They want a different type of villain in Galactus, one where he's not evil, but too scared to make his motivations understandable while still being non-negotiable. They want to flirt with horror, with parental dread, and then diffuse it all with a joke about Herbie, the tape-faced robot. The dichotomy of being a parent is present but never fully explored. Galactus wants an heir to his throne. The Richards want the best possible future for their child while learning what it means to be caring for something truly bigger than themselves. It's right here where the film truly lies, and the movie dodges it faster than an ex-girlfriend walking towards you, with your name still slightly red from when she tried to carve it into her flesh. By the time we hit the finale, every ounce of tension has been sucked out, like air from a decompression chamber. Galactus' superpower seem to be that he can walk into buildings and scan for babies. Every once in a while, he has enough energy to stretch Reed out in a medieval, torturous way, and seems to enjoy it, proving once again he's indeed not a force of nature, but another evil asshole. Or, if he's really feeling himself, he can make a baby float about 2 feet above the palm of his hand. Reed and Sue still think their marriage is some kind of metaphor for cosmic unity. Ben is still alone, still sad, still clobbering in circles, and Johnny is used only as the plot device the writers need him to be. Marvel has forgotten what made Fantastic Four resonate in the first place. It was never about stretchy limbs or fireballs or space clouds. It was about family. Dysfunctional, chaotic, nuclear mutated family. People who yelled at each other, failed each other, but loved each other anyways. This film pays lip service to that idea, but you can see the terror behind its eyes, the fear of sincerity, the fear of silence, the fear of letting something breathe. Fantastic Four is not the beginning of something new. This is the middle of the end. Marvel's not making bold first steps. It's clawing back into the womb, sucking its thumb, begging for another billion-dollar box office hit to delay the inevitable. This is not a step forward. It's a goddamn pratfall into a pile of cosmic horseshit, wrapped in nostalgia, and told to you with a wink. You have to walk before you can run, yes, but first you have to want to move. And right now, Marvel would rather lie on the floor, kicking its legs, pretending it's doing parkour. The future isn't bright, it's not retro chic, and it's not full of promise. It's beige, it's soft, it's scared. And somewhere out there in the void, Galactus is still hungry. But to end this all on an up note, because even in the swirling muck of corporate compromise, sometimes the machine spits out something shiny. The film's pace is shockingly spotless. No bloated runtime, no endless wheels spinning. It moves. Scene to scene, beat to beat, there's a strange gravitational pull that kept my eyes glued to the screen. I was always interested, not necessarily invested, but curious about what would happen next. That counts for something in this age of cinematic Xanax. Fantastic Four First Steps is worth the single view. Curious little blip of mid-century style, slight earnest attempts at sincerity, and just enough weirdness to keep you leaning forward. But repeated viewing, you won't come back. Not out of love, not out of need. Once is enough. Hey, do yourself a favor, smash the like button, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more of my award-winning personality to fix your day. I'm out of here.